Now, on to the second part of our digital encyclopedia of case and movement finishes. In part 1, we went through the simpler world of case finishes. If you haven't read that blog post or seen that YouTube video, first we'd recommend going back and watching it, as it'll set you up nicely for the much more complex series of movement finishes. Part 1 can be read or watched via the link in the description below. The mark of an ultra high-end watch is often how well finished the case and movement is. The movement finish often serves a function and is rarely purely aesthetic. Improper polishing of pinions will lead to unnecessary friction, causing a watch to be less reliable and accurate. The shallow grooves from a Geneva striped finish on the movement scrubs any minor imperfections in the metal, and the finish can trap dust, which can lodge in moving parts and increase friction. Edges are chamfered to prevent the tips from breaking away and obstructing the movement, whilst also, when done right, making a watch absolutely stunning to look at. Take Patek Phillipe for example. Patek Phillipe are masters of finish, famed to have an aesthetic committee to evaluate whether the construction and finish of a movement is adequately attractive before endorsing full production. The finest movement finishes are produced by the likes of Patek Phillipe and A.Lange and Sohne, and are almost always finished by hand, resulting in the most perfect finish possible. We'll begin with the shared finishes that can be found both on the case and the movement. Again, the intricacies of the movement finish cannot be fully appreciated through the lens we have on the camera at the moment, so for this video we'll need a much bigger lens. Polished. The first of our shared finishes between the movement and the case is a polished finish. Polished sections of a movement can almost always be found, as it is functional as we mentioned as well as aesthetic. Polished screws are commonly used for movements, and we'll get into screws property later in this post. But a polished finish can be used on most parts of the movement, and so is very frequently found. The finest polish is known as black polish due to the way the metal reflects light as a result of the perfect finish, seen here on the swan neck regulator of this Glashütte original. Brushed. One of the more common finishes found on the case is equally common on well-finished movements. A brushed finish, both in straight grain and circular grain, is commonly found on the bridges and wheels of high-end movements. Circular grain is most common, as you can almost always find a circular grain on the wheels of a watch with an exhibition caseback. A straight grain can often be found on the arms of an automatic chronograph or bridges, perfectly demonstrated by this IWC Portuguesa, with one wheel bearing a circular grain and one bearing a straight grain, emanating from the central pivot, as well as a straight grain on the raised sections of the rotor in the right of the video. Beveling. Though we did see beveling as part of the case finish, its use in finishing the movement is much more subtle. As we said, beveling, also known as chamfering or anglage, serves a purpose in preventing the edges of the plates and bridges from breaking off and damaging the movement. Beveling is a feature found on a higher end movement, but Nomos are a brand known for their exceptionally finished movements, here showing the beveled edges of the plates on this Nomos Ahoy datum. Côtes de Genève. Côtes de Genève is another relatively common movement finish, often referred to as Geneva stripes, which is the English translation. It is achieved by running a rotating element laterally across various movement components, as well as with the lesser seen variants with curved stripes across the plates of the movement. This finish can be seen both before on the Nomos Glashütte Ahoy datum, as well as this Jägerle Culture Master Grand Ultra Thin. In fact, you will likely see this finish in every picture we include in this article due to its popularity. Perlage. Another exceptionally popular finish is perlage. Perlage is frequently seen on the inside of casebacks of vintage watches and finishing of the movement of many high-end modern watches. This finish is achieved by repeatedly pressing a rotating grinding tip on the movement to create the massive overlapping circular patterns, seen here on this Tag Heuer Monaco. Blued and polished screws. polished screws are almost always found through an exhibition caseback. However, the level of finish can vary greatly. Lesser seen is the practice of bluing screws. Thermally blued steel is a practice used in watchmaking for decades, as it not only increases the strength of the steel, but also makes the steel go a stunning deep blue. Screws and occasionally other movement components can undergo the tricky and lengthy process of being thermally blued under a steady heat, increasing the strength, or the less expensive method of chemically bluing the steel. This doesn't increase the strength of the metal and gives a much less captivating blue to the component. All the watches we've featured so far have polished screws, so to see them, simply look back at the watches we've included previously. Blued screws, however, are perfectly demonstrated by a Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Grand Ultra Thin. Sunk jewels and screws. This is the last of our more common movement finishes. Sunk jewels and screws are similar to beveling, where the sharp edges of the jewel housing or screw hole are beveled and polished, looking as though the jewel and the screw have sunk into the metal, giving them the name jewel or screw sink, shown here on this IWC Portuguesa. Guilloche. Moving up the ladder of complexity, guilloche is definitely one of the lesser seen movement finishes. Guilloche is a series of extremely precise, intricate repeating patterns, mechanically engraved into a metal. It is very rarely seen and only found on the most luxurious pieces, seen here on our Ulysses Nardin Maxi Marine chronograph. Gold stamped. Many movements are stamped with the movement specifications or manufacturer and then re-stamped with a layer of gold leaf, resulting in a gold print that stands out from the cold grey of the movement, seen here again on our Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Grand Ultra Thin. Sandblasted. Sandblasted finish is seen in a variety of watches, with the execution resulting in a completely different look. As we said, with the movement finish, sandblasting gives the metal a matte and smooth finish. It is only when inspected extremely closely can the finely gritted finish of the movement actually be seen. It is demonstrated here on a skeletonized bridge of the Huvlo King Power Unico. Engraving. Engraving is another lesser seen finish, as it almost always has to be executed by hand by a skilled engraver. Engraving is most commonly seen on the rotor of watches or on the balance cock, as is frequently seen on A.Lange and Sohne watches. Here, the engraving of the small Ulysses Nardin anchor logo is engraved onto the solid 22 karat gold rotor of this Ulysses Nardin Maxi Marine chronograph. Note, these last few finishes included are only found on ultra high-end watches, and you'd be hard-pressed to find them anywhere not on a watch less than £15,000. Due to their rarity, we don't have any in stock, though they may still be listed on our website for special order, and therefore any pictures. As a result, we did not take the pictures of the next three finishes. The source will be included beneath the image and in the description below. Hammered. A hammered finish is also found on the movement, often used as a backdrop to raised polished text to make it stand out all the more so. The difference in the hammered movement finish and the hammered case finish is the movement finish is usually a much finer grain, seen here on an A.Lange and Sohne movement. Decorated wheels. Another rare movement finish is the practice of specially constructed wheels and pinions. Again, this usually needs to be done by a skilled watchmaker and largely by hand, seen here on this Patek Phillipe 5016R Grand Complication movement. Chatons. Chatons historically have been strictly functional. Years ago, when natural rubies were used for the low friction, high strength bearings for watch parts where there would otherwise be high wear and tear. However, due to the imperfections of the natural rubies, they were secured in gold collars, and adjusted very finely via screws surrounding the gold collar. Today, synthetic rubies are perfectly manufactured and are set in the movement without the need for a collar for fine adjustment, leading to greater accuracy. Gold chatons are used today as a mainly decorative item for extremely high-end pieces, such as this A.Lange and Sohne Lange 1. As you can see, the crystals are set in the gold collars secured by blued screws. I would bet the price of every watch in this blog post that you weren't fully aware of the importance and complexity of finishes in watchmaking. However, if you have read both part 1 and part 2, then we challenge you to find a case or movement finish that we haven't got included in this article. We'll show you a Patek Phillipe recently sold through the watch source. Let's see if you can find all the movement finishes in this stunning piece. Clue: we can spot 7 different finishes. Pause the video here if you want to try your luck and comment what finishes you were able to find. Good luck! If you enjoyed this article, be sure to check out the countless other horological reviews, articles and tips on the Watch Source blog. Be the first to be notified of our new blog releases by following our Facebook, Twitter or Instagram linked below, and keep up to date with our YouTube video versions by subscribing and turning on the bell to receive notifications of our frequent updates. As always, visit thewatchsource.co.uk and thewatchsource.co.uk/pre-owned to view our extensive selection of luxury timepieces at unrivaled prices with up to 22% off luxury watches. Specializing in over 40 opulent brands, both brand new and pre-owned, and with over 60 years of combined experience in the luxury watch industry, we can more than fulfill all your horological needs.